Another one of those cool points that sort of jumped out to me, and I love the analogy that came to me. My head's a weird place to be sometimes. You probably realise that by now. But the way it pieces things together, I kind of like it.
Yeah, once again, just an amazing point, Mr. Peters. And yeah, you're a strange little creature, but that was fantastic.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible.
Today is day 249, covering Ezekiel 23 and 24.
All right, so it's really cool actually. My first point today is literally just a completely almost off topic type thing. But at church last week, we were talking about one of the minor prophets, and I can't remember who it was now. That's really annoying. Never mind. But basically,
well, I just want to list off some minor prophets: Amos, Habakkuk, Hosea.
Could have been Hosea. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
But he said a really simple, subtle thing. Again, not poignant, not deep, not like a lesson or anything like that. But he just mentioned, kind of in passing, that Israel and Judah became two different nations effectively. And the capital of Israel became Samaria, and the capital of Judah became Jerusalem. And that's it, really. But it was nice to suddenly go, oh, so when they're talking about Samaria, they're talking about the city that is within Israel. When they're talking about Jerusalem, they're talking about the city that is within Judah. And Samaria in Israel was taken by the Assyrians, and Jerusalem and Judah was taken by the Babylonians. So suddenly it was like, oh, I see where they fit now. Cool. Like little non-point, but also kind of like, all right.
Super important though, because still, this is our second time reading through the entire Bible, right? And still, I don't know where the heck things are going on half the time.
Yeah.
Some stuff happened in some desert somewhere. And it's like, actually, for the historicity of the Bible, which is so strong, and people don't realize how strong it is, it's actually great to know these things. So Samaria, to me, I think in some weird way, I've been thinking Somalia or like Mesopotamia, like some ancient other place. Just quickly, so Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Any of those?
Probably.
Okay, cool, fair enough. I thought maybe if I mentioned it, it might click, but never mind. Sweet. So I just had a general point for 23 to start with, and then I'll do 23:20, and then you do 23:30, I guess. So the imagery of God watching as his daughters are defiled by many men in Ezekiel 23 gives us just a very small glimpse of his fatherly love and how the actions of the people are absolutely devastating to God. So I don't have a daughter, obviously Adam does. The idea that your daughter one day would be defiled, how you would feel about that, right? It's like, it's gut-wrenching. And even as your friend, even the thought of that happening to your daughter really hurts me. So I can't even imagine how much it hurts you, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a glimpse of how God feels when we sin and do these terrible things.
Yeah, that whole thing is something that as a parent, it does sort of haunt you to a certain extent, because especially reading something like The Shack and seeing how stuff can happen. And even yesterday, we were out shopping at Value Village, and I told Archie all right, you wait there for a second. I need to run a pair of shoes back. I ran like 20 meters down the store to put something back and come back to him. And he was just stood there waiting for me with this look like, I hope Daddy's coming back. And it was just like, I thought later, you're in a store, but those are the stories that you hear of, like, I turned my back for a minute and they were gone. Yeah. And then you play that through in your head, and it's just like, holy flip, man.
Yeah.
Nah, it's just not worth it.
It really isn't. It really isn't. Exactly. So God reaches us where we are. And so obviously as a parent, that's one great way. They do other imagery for singles and other people as well. Right. So Ezekiel 23:20, there she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of horses. First of all, I love the fact that the Bible is so raw and just graphic sometimes as this.
Yeah.
But something else, I was watching this random video about artwork the other day, and in the ancient world, apparently large genitals were a symbol of not being able to control your lust. So it's not even necessarily that these people literally had genitals the size of donkeys. It's probably a simile but this idea that they can't control their sexual urges and their lust. And I just think that's so relevant today in the world we live in, with so much pornography and everything else going on, right?
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I like that. I'd like to point out, I don't think their genitals were the size of a donkey. They're probably the size of a donkey's genitals.
Right.
Sitting around with two hanging out that were the size of a full-grown donkey, that would be a talking point.
It would.
That's not what you were saying. I'm just being stupid.
Love it, though.
Another one of those cool points that sort of jumped out to me, and I love the analogy that came to me. My head's a weird place to be sometimes. You've probably realized that by now. But the way it pieces things together, I kind of like it. In 22:30, it is saying that your lewdness, I'm going to read it so I make sure I get it right. I'm going to read it from here. 23:30, that's why it didn't make sense. 23:30, your lewdness and promiscuity have brought this on you because you lusted after the nations and defiled yourself with the idols. But then it goes on to say about how actually it's the Lord that's holding them to account effectively. And what I love about it is it's such a good visual that they chased after and submitted to those who could give them temporary happiness, like this whole instant gratification thing. But actually, they were being held accountable to the standards of somebody else. And the analogy that I made was it was kind of like a professional, in my head, footballer, but sports player that plays for a professional team, held to very high standards for fitness, for punctuality, for all this stuff, going on loan and playing it for a Sunday beer league. And it's like where the expectation is Saturday night, you get wasted, you turn up hungover, you warm up with a cup of coffee and a cigarette, you go out and play and you kick the crap out of someone, and then you go home and have another 6 pints on the way. And it's like, actually, you are being held to the standard of the people that are paying your wages, which is your professional team, but you are then submitting yourself to the actions of the people that you're in and around. But they're not the ones paying you. They're not the ones that you're actually working for. You should be like attributing yourself, that's probably the wrong term, but you should be working to the standard of the person that's going to be giving you the final judgment at the end of the year, at the end of your life. But instead, you're focusing more on what's in and around you and just staying at their level.
Yeah, once again, just an amazing point, Mr. Peters. And yeah, you're a strange little creature, but that was fantastic. I kept thinking of Danny Dyer and Football Factory in that analogy, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like, I'm trying to remember one of my favorite verses is about how we should remember that we're working for God, not for human masters.
Yeah,
I think it's Colossians 30 or 3 verse 30 or 30 verse 3. But anyway, that's what that reminded me of as well. Really, really cool point. I don't really like my next point, especially after what you just did. Plus, we've only got a little bit of time. So I'm going to skip down to 24:17. And I know you got a hop back bit, but groan quietly, do not mourn for the dead. Keep your turban fastened and your sandals on your feet. Do not cover your mustache and beard or eat the customary foods of mourners. So this is talking about a huge portion of people being wiped out. And it's quite a simple point, but when evil is wiped out, it shouldn't be a time for mourning. That can be really difficult in certain stages, because you might be attached to someone or something that is doing evil, right? But in this case, God wipes out evil and he says, don't mourn these dead. They don't deserve to be mourned for, effectively. And yeah, when evil is wiped out, it should be celebrated, not mourned.
Yes. However, this point was in relation to Ezekiel's wife dying, not lots of people. You were saying like it was lots of people, so don't mourn others that have died. This is specifically the word of the Lord came to me, son of man, with one blow I'm about to take away the delight of your eyes. Yet do not lament or weep or shed any tears. Groan quietly, do not mourn the dead. Keep your turban fastened. So I spoke to people in the morning, and in the evening my wife died. In the morning I did as I'd been commanded. Because I read a translation that was effectively saying how cruel for God to kill Ezekiel's wife. But actually saying that God didn't necessarily do that. God gave Ezekiel pre-warning, because the way somebody acts and reacts to bad news speaks a lot about sort of their status and how they are. I should just find it, but we're pretty much out of time for the episode now.
Yeah, no, and that's a classic thing. Was she a bad wife?
I don't think so. The delight of his eyes, it says. So it was just literally his wife died, but how he reacted to it spoke volumes to his sort of like. Anyway, maybe we'll touch more on this bit tomorrow, shall we?
Yeah, sounds good.
Officially, tomorrow, 25, 26, and 7, get reading. Love you all.
Yeah, please subscribe to our 2 Brits and a Bible and share this with someone to help spread the word of God. If you like, why can't I do this? I just get in this zone. Okay, I'm sorry. Right, we can do this. All right, my bad.